Imagine waking up to that familiar knot in your stomach. Your phone lights up with notifications, sharp criticism under a post you poured your heart into, a polite but crushing rejection from the opportunity you'd been counting on, and that tense exchange with your partner over something as trivial as whose turn it was to handle the dishes. Before the day has even properly begun, your mind is already spiraling. You feel small, powerless, carried along by forces outside your control. So you do what most of us do. You scroll, you numb out, you tell yourself this is just how life feels sometimes. And yet, deep down, you know there must be another way. What if the ancient Stoics had already found it? What if they discovered how to become emotionally unbreakable? Not by shielding yourself from pain, but by changing the very way you need it. Stay with me. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through 10 distilled lessons from Stoic philosophy that have the power to rewire how you experience every challenge, every setback, every ordinary day. These aren't feel-good platitudes. They are practical, battle-tested tools used by people who faced far harsher realities than most of us ever will. Let me introduce you to the 3 giants whose wisdom we'll be drawing from. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, who ruled during wars and plagues, yet wrote private meditations to keep his soul steady. Seneca, the brilliant advisor to emperors, who amassed a fortune but trained himself to live as though he could lose everything in a single breath. And Epictetus, born a slave, crippled by his master, yet freer in spirit than the rulers who owned him. All 3 lived in times of extreme uncertainty, just like ours. They didn't escape their emotions, they refused to be ruled by them. That is the core Stoic insight. Emotional strength isn't the absence of feeling, it's the quiet, unshakable knowledge that no external storm can ever touch the fortress of your own mind. And today, when anxiety has become almost a badge of normal life, these teachings feel more urgent than ever. The 10 lessons you're about to hear aren't random tips. They form a complete system, a 3-level progression that forges emotional strength the way a blacksmith forges a sword. First, you learn to control your perceptions so the heat of adversity doesn't break you. Then you train your responses with the hammer of daily practice. Finally, you temper everything with the cool water of virtue and reflection. By the end of this video, you will hold in your hands the same emotional operating system that kept history's most resilient souls standing tall, no matter what the world threw at them. Let's begin at the foundation.
Picture the last time someone criticized you. Perhaps a boss, a friend, or even a stranger online. You felt that familiar sting, didn't you? Your mind immediately began rehearsing replies, replaying the moment, letting it steal your peace for hours or even days. This is where most of us waste our emotional energy, on things that are simply not up to us. Epictetus, the former slave who became one of the clearest voices in Stoicism, gave us the single most liberating distinction in all of philosophy. He called it the dichotomy of control. Some things are up to us, he wrote, and some things are not. Your reputation, other people's opinions, the traffic, the stock market, even the past, these are not up to you. What is up to you is your effort, your attitude, and the meaning you choose to give events. The common mistake is so subtle we barely notice it. We hand over our inner peace to things we can never control. We tie our worth to likes, our mood to the weather, our happiness to outcomes that depend on 1,000 variables. The result? Constant emotional exhaustion. Here's a simple daily practice that changes everything. The moment any trigger appears, a harsh email, a canceled plan, a rude comment, pause and run a quick mental checklist of, is this up to me? If the answer is no, gently withdraw your emotional investment. Redirect every ounce of energy to what you can control, how you respond, how you show up, what you learn.
One man I know, a graphic designer drowning in client revisions, started using this checklist every morning. Within weeks, he stopped caring about feedback that wasn't constructive. His anxiety dropped dramatically, and his creativity actually increased because his mind was finally free. Master this single distinction, and you will instantly cut away the majority of unnecessary suffering. But there's something deeper that happens once you stop fighting what you cannot control. You begin to meet life exactly as it is, and that opens the door to one of the most radical practices in Stoicism, amor fati, the love of fate. Marcus Aurelius captured it perfectly when he reminded himself, accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together. Most of us do the opposite. Something painful happens, a job loss, a diagnosis, a betrayal, and we spend months or years internally screaming, this shouldn't have happened. That resistance is what turns pain into prolonged suffering. Imagine instead waking up after a devastating setback and quietly saying to yourself, this is what I needed. Not because you enjoy the pain, but because you trust that every event carries within it the seed of growth if you choose to water it. A woman once shared her story with me. She lost her business, her savings, and her relationship in the same year. Instead of bitterness, she began asking each morning, where is the hidden advantage here? Within 2 years, she had rebuilt something far more aligned with who she truly was, calmer, more purposeful, and genuinely grateful for the collapse that forced her to begin again. That is amor fati in action.
The practice is simple but profound. The next time life delivers an obstacle, pause and reframe it within 24 hours. This is what I needed. Then, actively look for the advantage. Do this consistently and resistance dissolves. What once broke you now strengthens you. Once you learn to love what happens, you no longer need to fear what might happen. This is why the Stoics practiced premeditatio marum, the premeditation of misfortune. Seneca advised setting aside a few minutes each morning to calmly imagine the worst that could occur that day, not to scare yourself, but to rob fear of its surprise. Most people practice the opposite, toxic positivity that leaves them completely unprepared when difficulty arrives. Think of the dread you feel before a difficult conversation or a public presentation. The anxiety comes not from the event itself, but from the unknown. By mentally rehearsing it in advance, seeing yourself responding with patience, dignity, and courage, you remove the emotional sting before it ever lands. One young executive I know used to dread performance reviews. He began spending 5 minutes each morning visualizing the toughest feedback possible and deciding exactly how he would respond with virtue. When the actual review came and the feedback was indeed harsh, he remained calm and solution-focused. His boss later told him it was the most impressive display of emotional maturity he had ever seen. Make this a morning ritual. Visualize losing something important, a job, a relationship, your health, and see yourself responding with grace. The more you practice, the more unshakable you become. And this brings us to the ultimate perspective shift, remembering that one day you will lose everything. Memento mori, remember you must die. Marcus Aurelius kept death before his eyes constantly, not to depress himself, but to cut through trivial drama and live with urgent clarity. Most of us live as though we have forever, wasting precious hours on arguments, grudges, and endless scrolling, while the people we love wait for our full presence. The Stoics understood that death is not a distant event. It is the quiet companion that makes every moment sacred. When you truly feel the finitude of your days, small things stop mattering, and the important ones come sharply into focus. Create a brief daily death meditation. In the morning or before bed, simply remind yourself, I may not live to see tonight. Then ask, if this were my last day,
How would I treat the people around me? How would I spend these hours? Watch how procrastination dissolves, how patience returns, how love becomes easier. One father who started this practice told me it cured years of emotional distance with his teenage son. He stopped waiting for the right time to connect because he realized there might not be one.
With mortality as your compass, you begin to see that external events are never the true source of your disturbance. The real source is always the story you tell yourself about those events. Epictetus put it with devastating clarity. It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions of them. The traffic jam doesn't anger you. Your judgment that it shouldn't be happening does. The criticism doesn't hurt you. Your belief that it defines your worth does. This insight is revolutionary. It means your emotional life is not at the mercy of the world. It is at the mercy of your own thinking, and that thinking can be retrained. The practical tool is what I call the judgment audit. The moment you feel a strong negative emotion, pause and ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Then rewrite it in a way that serves your peace and your character. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Instead of, what a jerk, try, they must be in a hurry. Perhaps they're rushing to someone who needs them. The feeling shifts almost instantly. I watched a woman transform her entire marriage with this practice. She used to interpret her husband's silence as rejection. After learning to audit her judgments, she began seeing it as his way of processing stress. Their arguments dropped by more than half. The external situation never changed, only her interpretation did. And when the world still manages to shake you, because it will, you need a place to retreat. The Stoics called it the inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go that is quieter or more untroubled than your own soul." This inner fortress is always available, no matter how chaotic the outer world becomes. Family drama, social media storms, financial pressure, none of it can breach your citadel unless you open the gate. Develop a 60-second citadel entry ritual. When you feel overwhelmed, close your eyes, take 3 slow breaths, and silently repeat, "I return to my inner citadel." Feel yourself stepping behind invisible walls where only your own judgments and choices exist. One man survived a brutal public betrayal by using this exact practice every time the pain resurfaced. Within weeks, the external noise no longer reached him. He kept his dignity and eventually rebuilt his life from a place of profound inner peace. To make that citadel even stronger, the Stoics deliberately practiced voluntary discomfort. Seneca would periodically live on the simplest food, wear rough clothing, and sleep on a hard bed, not because he enjoyed hardship, but because he wanted to prove to himself that he could endure it. In our comfort-obsessed culture, we do the opposite. We chase ease and wonder why we crumble at the first sign of difficulty. Voluntary discomfort builds emotional armor. It teaches your nervous system that you are safe even when conditions are less than perfect.
Start small. Take cold showers, skip a meal once a week, go a full day without complaining, or have that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Explain to yourself why you're doing it. I am training my soul to be free. The science now confirms what the Stoics knew intuitively. Controlled exposure to stress makes us more resilient, both mentally and physically. All of these practices lead to one ultimate skill, the ability to respond with virtue instead of reacting with raw emotion. Between every stimulus and your response lies a sacred gap. Epictetus taught us to use that gap. Most people lose it. They are provoked and they explode, damaging relationships and their own reputation in seconds. The Stoic pauses. In that pause, they ask, what would the wise person do? Install the virtue pause.
When you feel the heat rising in an argument with your partner, a tense meeting, or even reading an insulting message, silently count to 3 and ask that single question. Then act from virtue rather than impulse. The results are dramatic. One executive who practiced this stopped reactive emails that had cost him promotions in the past. His reputation for calm wisdom spread throughout the company. When you consistently respond with virtue, something beautiful happens. You stop obsessing over outcomes and fall in love with effort instead. Epictetus drew a clear line. Focus only on what is up to you. The promotion, the relationship success, the perfect health, these are not up to you. Your effort, your integrity, your preparation, these are. Attach your peace to the effort and let the outcome be whatever it needs to be. Create a simple effort ritual. At the end of each day, celebrate what you controlled, the hours you focused, the kindness you showed, the discipline you kept. Ignore the results. One entrepreneur who adopted this practice after years of anxiety-driven burnout told me it was the first time he could sleep peacefully, even when sales were down. His energy returned, and ironically, his results improved. All 10 of these lessons come together in one final life-changing habit, the evening reflection. Marcus Aurelius ended each day by reviewing it honestly in his journal. Seneca suggested 3 simple questions. What did I do well? Where did I fall short? And how will I improve tomorrow? This nightly practice compounds every previous lesson. It turns philosophy into lived identity. Set aside just 5 minutes before bed. Ask yourself those 3 questions without judgment, only curiosity and commitment. One person who started this ritual after decades of repeating the same emotional patterns said it felt like rewiring his brain. Within months, he became calmer, wiser, and more consistent than he had ever been.
Look at what has happened as we've walked this path together. You now possess a complete emotional operating system, the same one that carried emperors through wars, slaves through chains, and ordinary people through ordinary heartbreaks. The person who began this video, overwhelmed, reactive, secretly fragile, no longer exists. In their place stands someone who controls what they can, loves what happens, anticipates difficulty without fear, remembers death to live fully, audits their judgments, retreats to an inner citadel, trains through discomfort, pauses before reacting, focuses on effort, and reflects each night to grow. This is the Stoic path to true freedom. Not freedom from hardship, but freedom within it. A life of quiet dignity, unshakable peace, and deep fulfillment, no matter what the world brings. The beautiful truth is that you don't need to wait for some future version of yourself to begin. You can start right now, today, with any single lesson that spoke to you most clearly. Choose one. Practice it deliberately for the next 7 days. Watch how your inner world begins to change. If this resonated with you, do 2 small things that help us keep creating this kind of content. Leave a like so others can find this wisdom, and subscribe so we can continue this journey together every week. In the comments, simply write the number of the lesson you're committing to practice first. Let's build a community of people who refuse to be ruled by their emotions. Your emotionally strong life doesn't start someday. It starts the moment you decide. Thank you for spending this time with the Stoics. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, remember, you are stronger than you know, and now you have the tools to prove it.